like to demonstrate today is how to take a look at the flywheel key on this lawnmower. The fellow that owns this lawnmower said that it hit something underneath, and now he's afraid that the shaft might be bent, and that just might be the case, but it didn't look like it to me. And when I went ahead and tried to start it, it pulled my arm back pretty hard. So that suggests to me that the timing is off. And with these small engines, this particular one, the only way to check the timing is to actually take a look at the flywheel key, and that's something that often shears or even slightly shears a little bit when you do hit something. And changing the flywheel key is a lot cheaper than having to toss out the engine because you bent the shaft. So I'm going to show you how to get to the flywheel key today, and we'll learn something new. The first thing I want to do is to go ahead and take the air filter off. And there's a bolt right up here, and that is a 5/16 ratchet. So let's go ahead and take off the air filter. There it is. And then the part that's bolted onto the carburetor here, we can take that off real simply too, using the same 5/16 socket. There are 3 bolts. Now this thing just kind of pulls away. There's a breather hose here, and it's connected to a tube down here, so make sure that when you reconnect it, it's all connected properly. So the next thing I want to do is take off this cover. Very simply, there's only 2 screws in this particular engine. Use a Phillips screwdriver. Take that off, and you can just lift that off and set it aside over here. Now the gas tank is connected to the top of the engine using the same 5/16 socket, but before we do that, I want to just disconnect the fuel line so that we could tip the gas tank out of the way. So got myself a little vice grips here, some fuel line on the end to soften it, cover the teeth, and I use that to pinch off my fuel line because I know there's fuel in this tank. Let me grab regular pliers, and we'll squeeze the fuel line clamp, pull it aside, and then very gently work the fuel line off without damaging it. Okay, there we go. So now, using the 5/16 socket, there are 3 bolts on top here. Three bolts. And then the gas tank should be able to just pivot it backwards and out of the way, like so. Now over here, holding the dipstick for the oil on, there's another bolt, same 5/16 socket. Take that off, and then just gently lift a little bit, and you can just spin it away out of your way. Try not to spill any oil. Now the next thing is we've got 2 bolts here and 2 bolts in the front, and this particular time we're going to use a 3/8 inch socket. Okay, there's the 2 back bolts. Two front bolts. And now this cover, if you lift it straight up, should come off like so. Okay, set that aside. Now what we're after is the bolt right up here, the flywheel bolt. And I'll give you a closer look. Okay, so now looking down from the top of the flywheel. You see that big nut in there? So what we're going to do is I get an impact wrench. And we'll pop that baby off. Take this cover off. Okay, so what we're looking at here is see, I don't know if you can see this groove right here. That's the shaft. But if you look over here, this is where the key is. This groove is supposed to be lined up with that key. So that means that this flywheel key is definitely sheared. So we're gonna pop this flywheel off, and then we're gonna put a new key in there and then reassemble it, and this thing should run well. Alright, let's get to it. Okay, now Briggs and Stratton does make a flywheel puller, and it looks like this, but I tried to use this and it's actually stripped out the holes there, so in this case it's not working for me. Mostly it does. So we're going to try the poor man's way. We're going to take the original nut that came off of the shaft here. I'm going to turn that down until it's flush with the top of the shaft here. We'll take a bar and we're just going to put light upward pressure on the flywheel, and a ball peen hammer. We're going to tap on this and get it to jar loose. Okay, there we go. So take that nut off. The purpose of putting a nut here is to protect the threads on both the nut and the shaft. So then the flywheel lifts off, and now we'll clean out the remnants of that flywheel key, use the sheared bit of it, and we'll replace the flywheel key. Alright, so just to get rid of the remnants of that old flywheel key, try to pry it out of there. Small screwdriver. There we go. Make sure that groove is nice and clean. We'll take the flywheel key, the flywheel itself, and take that groove. Yep. Should have engaged the brake here. There you go. Now we line up the two grooves. We take the new flywheel key, slide it in place, and there we go. You just replaced the flywheel key. So then you take the cup and you take the bolt. Take your impact. Now I'm not going to trust just that. I'm going to get my actual torque wrench out here. And I'm going to put it on here, and I'm going to make sure this is torqued to the right specs. But basically you put everything back together the way you took it apart in reverse order, and your timing is back on. This lawnmower should run well unless there's other issues. But we're going to assume that that was the problem right now. And for the purpose of this video, this is a done deal. Thanks for watching.